Right, continuing with how we made this chair, we've got to make the vertical segments now. There's 21 of these all together, and we're using 9mm ply still. They're going to be 10mm spacings all around the centre line. So we made them an inch wide, using the tape measure as before, used that to mark out the arcs on the wood. Right, they don't need to be perfect C shapes from top to bottom. You can allow about a 40mm space off the top, because obviously they won't all end up in the same place anyway. It's impossible. And on ours, with the way the base worked, we could lose 180mm off the bottom. I didn't realise this at the time when I was making ours, and it would have made mine a lot easier, because obviously the shorter these are, the easier they are to cut out of one piece of wood. So when I cut ours out, I wasn't thinking about the cut off at the bottom for the base or anything like that, so I made them as big as I possibly could. This takes up an awful lot of wood, and the only way I could do it out of the wood I had was to overlay them. So, as in the picture, and you can see, I ended up with pieces of wood with a pointed top and a pointed bottom. The bottom didn't matter, because in the end I cut it off anyway, but with mine, because I left pointed tops, there was no strength in it, and this is why I've had to cut the top off the seat, and I'm going to have to make that separately. As it happens, it's not a bad thing anyway. I think it's probably easier to do it that way. Well, maybe not easier, but it's not a problem. But if you made them shorter in the first instance, you'll get a lot more out of one piece of wood. And it might be an easier way of doing it would be to mark one out, and then once you've got one the size that you want it, then you could overlay it on the wood and find the best way of cutting it out of one piece. So hopefully you'll end up with 21 pieces that all look exactly the same, sort of something like this. Now what we've got to do is cut out the slots where they're going to slot into the horizontal pieces. So this is where we've got to mark out on our vertical pieces where they're going to meet the horizontal pieces. The way I did this was to draw one of the vertical pieces on a piece of wood, draw a centre line down, and make the markings on the piece of wood, and then I put all of the ones I'd cut on top of it and made a mark onto it from that. So down your centre line you've got to come back 25mm each time, draw a line right angles across, and where it meets the outside edge of the arc of the vertical piece, which in the diagram's point T. Obviously there's a few more of them than that, but this gives you an idea of how it works. Made a mark there, because that's kind of like the important point. So you notice from the nature of the curve, obviously, they get closer and closer together as they move down the wood. So once you've got them all marked, then what you need to do then is mark where the slots are going to be. So then you see what you're doing is going back across the wood, but it's the outside point T is like I say, the important bit to remember. That's where the outside edge of the curve is going to be. So as you're going down, all you want to do is go back 12.5mm from that point, as shown in the picture. And what you'll find, obviously, as you go further down the arc, the bits that you're cutting out get deeper and deeper and deeper, but the 12.5mm got to stay the same. So if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. We used a little jigsaw to cut this out. It did take a very long time to do, but once you've finished it, that's the last of the cutting, and you can start putting it together now. So now you can start putting it together. I've got 4 of the vertical pieces. Sake. Right. So, excuse me for that. So I've got 4 of the vertical pieces, laid them down, and then God, I lost my train of thought completely. 4 of the vertical pieces, laid them down, slotted the horizontal pieces into it, wire locked and glued them in so they're all nice and tight. and then gradually put all of the rest of the vertical pieces in and glued them together. Bear in mind that they're very, very flimsy to start with. They get stronger, obviously, as you build it, but I managed to snap a couple as I was doing it and I had to repair them. Hopefully, by the time you're finished, you should end up with a real nice looking shape that looks something like this. So, next bit is to make the front, which will really strengthen it up once that's done. So we made our front. This has got to give it some strength, so we used some fatter ply for this. We used some 18mm ply for this. Got a sheet of it, put the structure down on top of it, drew around the structure. It should be a circle. If it's not, we made ours a perfect circle using the tape measure. There's enough flex in the structure to do this. So drew out a perfect circle, put it back down on top of it, marked out where all of the horizontal pieces met it, and then routed them out with a router, so it slotted on there nicely. Then cut the centre of it out, just leaving a flat piece for the bottom, and then glued it together, and this really did stiffen it up. So now we've got to fit the base. We need to make it strong. You've got to think about this. You can't have any particular load point on this. You need to try and spread the load throughout the whole structure. Or throughout most of the structure anyway. So you can see from the shape of it how I cut them out, and then glued them in along the horizontal pieces and buttered them up and glued them to the vertical pieces as well. So there's 6 of them spread throughout the whole structure. The flat on the bottom is to mount the base of the chair to, and the flat on the top. I just wish they'd go to bed sometimes. You know what I mean? You going now?
Yeah.
Right. Don't come back. Yeah, and the flat on the top is where we're going to fit the base of the seat to, where you actually sit. So I made those out of the 18mm ply as well. So then we had to get a mount for the base of the seat itself. So routed a slot out of the front of the seat, so it would slot into the front, and then cut a piece of wood round so it would fit around underneath the supports, and then screwed them up into the support so it was nice and strong on there. Then we got an old office chair, took the top off the office chair so we just had the base of it left, and bolted it through, mounted it onto the to the bit at the bottom that we just put on, and then that's sort of quite exciting then, because you can actually see what it's going to be. It actually starts looking like a seat.